Today, one of the greatest poker players alive is treated like a criminal in casinos around the world. Not because he stole chips, not because he hid a device, not because he hacked a system. Phil Ivey is banned because he won too much, too cleanly, and it embarrassed the house. In London, he walked into a private casino in Mayfair and, over 2 nights, won about $12 million. In Atlantic City, he did it again for another $9.6 million, more than $21 million total. No masks, no threats, no fingerprints on the cards. Just a calm face, a steady voice, and bets so large that everyone in the room could feel the air change. If you have ever sat at a table and hoped luck would finally turn, this story hits a nerve. Because it is not about greed. It is about control. It is about what happens when someone finds a crack in a system that was supposed to be unbeatable. Imagine the dealer at that table. You are smiling, trained to be polite, trained to make wealthy guests feel safe. Imagine the pit boss watching from a distance, hearing the clack of chips, thinking, this is what the casino is built for. And imagine the cameras above them recording every movement, every glance, every hand that never touches a card. August 2012, Crockfords, one of the oldest, most exclusive casinos in London. Members only. Royalty, billionaires, celebrities. A place where the culture is ritual and the rule is simple. The house always wins, eventually. Then Phil Ivey sits down to Baccarat at £50,000 a hand, and the numbers start moving the wrong way. The staff keeps searching for the trick, because there has to be a trick. But there is nothing to catch on tape, because the trick is not an action. It is an idea. And when the casino finally understands that, they do not call the police. They do something colder. They refuse to pay. They take him to court. They argue that even if he did nothing illegal, he did not play fair. That is the moment this becomes a story about power, not cards. And it all begins with a defect you can barely see. Phil Ivey does not walk into a casino like a loud celebrity. He moves like a man who has spent his whole life watching people give away information without realizing it. A twitch, a pause, a breath that changes when the stakes rise. He sits down and he becomes quiet. Not shy, not nervous. Calculating. That is what makes him dangerous to places like Crockfords. Casinos are built to handle emotion. They know how to feed it. Lights, music, free drinks, small kindnesses that turn into big risks. But Ivey is not chasing a feeling. He is hunting a pattern. And Baccarat, Punto Bamanco, is supposed to be the safest game for a casino. The rules are simple. 2 hands, player and banker. Closest to 9 wins. You do not bluff. You do not read a face. You do not outplay anyone. It is designed to feel like fate. A game where the only thing a human can do is choose a side, then watch. That is why this story feels so unsettling. Because if a game like that can be beaten, then what is luck, really? And what does the house actually sell? 3 months earlier, in May 2012, Las Vegas. A hotel room, quiet, air-conditioned, the city outside glowing like a promise. Phil Ivey sits across from a woman named Kelly. She is not there to flirt, not there to gamble. She is there to show him something most people would miss their entire lives. She slides a standard casino playing card across the table. A normal card, mass-produced, the kind a dealer handles 1,000 times in a night. Ivey looks at it and sees nothing. Kelly turns the card around 180 degrees, then points to the pattern on the back. Tiny diamonds, perfectly repeated. Except they are not perfect. One edge is just slightly wider. The other edge is just slightly narrower. A difference so small it disappears to the naked eye. About 0.3 millimeters. Less than the thickness of a few sheets of paper. But once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Kelly explains the idea in a way that feels almost too simple. If you can persuade the casino to rotate certain cards, you can later recognize them by the edge pattern on the back. You do not need to touch the card. You do not need to mark the card. You just need to know which way it is facing. High-value cards facing one way. Low-value cards facing the other. Ivey leans back, and for the first time his calm looks like something else. Not excitement. Not greed. Recognition. Like a lock clicking open. Then he asks the only question that matters. How do you make a dealer rotate the cards? Kelly does not tell the Macau story for sympathy. She tells it because it explains the hunger in her. People think advantage players are just greedy. But when you listen closely, you hear something else. A person who once felt powerless and promised herself she never would again. Years before she met Ivey, she moved through the VIP world in Macau, where money is quiet and pressure is loud. One bad debt, tied to someone close to her, pulled her into the kind of trouble you cannot solve with a phone call. Private collectors, the kind whispered about in casino corridors, took her and held her for days. Not a movie kidnapping, no dramatic music. Just cold concrete, no sleep, no information, and a constant message. You do not control anything here. When she was finally released, she did not run from casinos. She ran toward understanding them. She studied the way cards are printed, the way factories drift by a hair, the way patterns repeat, and the way humans stop looking once they believe something is normal. She trained her eyes until tiny errors felt like shouting. In gambling circles, people started calling her the Queen of Sorts, because she could see the invisible and turn it into certainty. Before London, they rehearse it like musicians. Kelly lays out cards under a hotel lamp, rotating them slowly, teaching the eye what to search for. Wide edge, wide, narrow, until the difference becomes a rhythm. Ivey does not celebrate, he tests himself. He looks away, looks back, calls it correctly again and again. Not because he loves the game, but because he respects what a single mistake would cost. In a casino, you do not get second chances. You get a polite smile, then a closed door. Kelly understands that too. She has lived the moment when a powerful system decides you are disposable. So she designs a method that leaves nothing for security to grab. No hands on cards. No signals, no hidden tools. Just etiquette. Just consent. The kind of consent a casino gives every day without thinking, because saying yes feels like good service. And that is where the plan becomes frighteningly simple. Back in London, Crockfords sees Phil Ivey as a prize. They want him comfortable. They want him to feel like the house is his house. In VIP rooms, especially with high rollers, casinos are trained to say yes. Yes to special chairs. Yes to lucky rituals. Yes to odd requests, because the business is not only gambling. It is hospitality wrapped around risk. Make the guest feel important, and he will keep coming back. And every yes has a price, even if nobody knows it yet. A dealer hears a polite request and wants to be helpful. A manager sees a famous name and wants to keep the room happy. Service becomes the lockpick. So Ivey arrives with calm in his posture, and he makes requests that sound harmless, almost superstitious. A dealer who speaks Mandarin because his guest prefers it. Cards rotated for luck. An automatic shuffler, but one that does not rotate cards. The same deck kept through the session. Cards that leave play not flipped, kept in the same orientation. Each request is a door. None of them looks like a crime. None of them triggers a camera alert. None of them sounds like cheating. But together they build a machine that turns a tiny printing defect into a signal. And here is the truth that makes casinos hate this story. The weapon is not under the table. It is not in a hidden device. It is not in a marked card. The weapon is the word yes. First session. Late night at Crockfords. The room is quiet in that expensive way, like the carpet itself was designed to absorb stress. Dealers move with rehearsed grace. Cameras watch from the ceiling like silent gods. And at the center, Phil Ivey sits as if he belongs there, because in a way, he does. The casino manager greets him personally. A famous name at a high-limit table is not just a player. It is an event. It is prestige. It is a story the staff will tell later, in whispers, like they were close to something important. Then the requests begin. 5 of them, each delivered calmly, politely, without pressure. Request 1. A Mandarin-speaking dealer. Kelly prefers it, he says. It sounds like comfort, culture, hospitality. The casino nods. Of course. Request 2. Certain cards should be rotated 180 degrees for luck. Ivey claims he is superstitious. Casinos have seen everything. Lucky socks, lucky seats, rituals, prayers. This is harmless. They nod again. Request 3. Use an automatic shuffler, but one that does not rotate the cards while mixing. The manager hears efficiency, smooth play, less downtime. Another yes. Request 4. Keep the same deck all night. Do not replace it. Ivey says it helps his rhythm. High rollers say strange things. The casino agrees. Request 5. When cards leave play, do not flip them. Leave them in the same orientation. Again, it sounds like a preference, a quirk. Another yes. To a normal person, these are just the habits of a wealthy gambler. To Kelly and Ivey, they are the blueprint of a trap. The game starts. 8 decks in the shoe, hundreds of cards. The dealer deals with clean hands and a practiced smile. Kelly sits beside Ivey, calm, almost gentle. She speaks in Mandarin, friendly, respectful. Not commanding. Never demanding. Just small suggestions wrapped in politeness. That one, turn it for luck. The dealer complies, because accommodating guests is part of the job. The dealer thinks it is superstition, a small comfort to someone betting more in one hand than most people make in a year. Kelly does it again, but only for certain cards, the high-value ones. 7s, 8s, 9s. In Baccarat, those cards tilt the outcome. They decide momentum. They make the difference between a steady bleed and a sudden surge. The pit boss watches the chips, not the cards. Security watches hands, not edges. And the cameras record nothing suspicious, because there is nothing suspicious. No touching, no marking, no devices, just a dealer rotating a card because a guest asked nicely. Hour by hour, the shoe becomes quietly organized. Not by order, but by orientation. High cards facing one direction, low cards the other. It is invisible to everyone in the room, except the two people who trained their eyes to see a hairline difference in a pattern. And then the shuffler does its job. It mixes the cards without rotating them. It creates chaos in order, but preserves the one thing Kelly needs. The orientation stays, the signal survives. Now the real game begins. Ivey watches the back of the next card as the dealer draws it from the shoe. He does not need to see the face. He only needs to see which edge is facing him. Wide edge, high card, narrow edge, low card. In a game advertised as pure luck, he has found information. He starts adjusting his bets. Not wildly, not dramatically. Just enough to matter. He wins. Then he loses. Then he wins again. It does not look like a man who is unstoppable. It looks like a man on a heater. But the math underneath is changing. Because he is not winning 100% of hands. That would be impossible, and it would scream for attention. He is winning 60%, 65. In Baccarat, that is not a hot streak. That is a broken wheel. And people in casinos can feel broken wheels, even when they cannot see them. Around 3 in the morning, the manager returns to the floor. He stands behind the rail, watching. Ivey is up a staggering amount. The dealer looks tired. The pit boss looks pleased, because volume is volume. But the manager does not smile the same way now. He watches Ivey for another stretch. He watches the timing, the bet sizing, the calm, the lack of emotion, no celebration, no frustration, just decisions. It is the calm that bothers him most, because luck usually comes with noise. It comes with laughter, disbelief, the human need to react. Ivey does not react. He performs. And by the end of that first session, as the sky over London starts to lighten, Phil Ivey stands up and leaves with millions in profit, as if it was an ordinary night. The manager forces a smile, and tells himself the same comforting lie casinos always tell about whales. He will come back. And when he comes back, the house will get it back. But even as Ivey disappears into the morning, the manager is already feeling something he hates. Not certainty. Suspicion. Second session. The same room, the same velvet quiet, but the energy is different now. On the first night, Crockfords saw a famous whale enjoying himself. On the second night, they see a problem walking back through the door. Phil Ivey returns like nothing happened. Same calm, same posture, same controlled breathing. Kelly sits beside him, composed, almost invisible. If you did not know their story, you would think they were simply two guests enjoying a private table. But the casino remembers the numbers from night 1. They remember the way the chips moved. They remember how their confidence felt thinner at 4 in the morning than it did at 11. And still, they welcome him. Because casinos are not built to admit fear. They are built to project certainty. The lights stay warm. The smiles stay professional. The drinks arrive on time. The service stays perfect. Even when the room feels like it is holding its breath, the deck is still in play. It has not been replaced, only shuffled. And that is the point. The shuffler mixes the order, but keeps the orientation. The signal remains. The system is already set. Ivey starts betting bigger. £75,000 per hand, then 100,000, then more. The amounts are so heavy they feel unreal, like Monopoly money, except everyone in that room knows it is real. And when the next hands are dealt, the pattern takes over. Wide edge, high card, bet one side. Narrow edge, low card, bet the other. Again, again, again. The wins do not look flashy. They look inevitable. Is what breaks the casino. Not just the money, but the feeling that the outcome is no longer alive. A casino can accept losses. It cannot accept a machine. The manager stands at the rail with his arms folded, watching every hand as if staring harder will reveal the secret. He pulls the pit boss close and whispers, "Check everything." They check the shoe. They check the shuffler. They check the table. They check the dealer, the sleeves, the cuffs, the hands. They look for a device, a mirror, a hidden camera. They find nothing, because there is nothing to find. No one touched the cards. No one marked the cards. No one broke a written rule.
Not here.
Ivey is simply making requests the casino already agreed to.
But they know we're
And that is why they cannot throw him out.
running out of time.
If they stop him without proof, they risk their reputation, their licensing, their promise to wealthy guests that rules mean something. In a room like this, reputation is more valuable than £1 million until the million becomes 5. So they let him play, and the bleeding continues. By midnight, the total across the 2 sessions is climbing into history. The manager is no longer pretending this is luck. He is staring at an impossible curve and trying to decide how to end a game he cannot accuse anyone of cheating. He approaches the table with a smile that is carefully manufactured. "Mr. Ivey, we would like to close the table for the night. A shift change, operational reasons. It is the most polite emergency break in the world." Ivey looks at his watch, then looks back at the manager. Calm, almost bored. "1 more hour." The manager hesitates, then nods, because in his mind 1 more hour cannot change what is already happening. The damage has been done. That final hour feels different. The bets hit the maximum. The air gets tighter. The dealer moves faster, but not fast enough to outrun the pattern. Kelly barely speaks now. She does not need to. The orientation is already set. The machine is already built. One hand, another, and then it ends. Phil Ivey stands up with £7.7 million in winnings, the biggest single win in that casino's long history. He shakes the dealer's hand, tips him generously, and walks away as if he is leaving a restaurant after dinner. The manager tells him the payout will take a few days. Large sums require verification. It sounds normal, it sounds reasonable. But in the car, away from the chandeliers and the cameras, Kelly finally speaks. Quiet voice, no triumph, no excitement, just certainty. They are not going to pay. Ivey stares ahead, processing a reality that feels wrong even for him. "They have to," he says. "I did nothing illegal." Kelly does not argue. She just lets the silence answer. 2 weeks later, the letter arrives. Crockfords regrets to inform him that his winnings will not be paid. Not because they caught cheating. Because they claim he violated the spirit of the game, that he acted dishonestly, that the win was not fair. And in that moment, the story turns from a clever advantage into something colder. A casino did not lose to a man at a table. It lost to its own yes. And now, it is going to use the law to take the money back. The refusal to pay is not just a business decision. It is a message. It tells every dealer who smiled that night, every staff member who welcomed a VIP, every guest who watched the chips move, that the house will change the meaning of the game when the loss becomes unbearable. Phil Ivey reads the letter twice, then a third time, because it still does not feel real. He did not sneak anything in. He did not touch the cards. He asked for conditions and the casino agreed. In his mind, this is what casinos do to players every day. They set rules that favor the house and they call it the game. But now the game has a new rule, written after the fact. Fair, that word becomes the battlefield. In London, the fight goes to court. The room changes from velvet and chandeliers to wood benches and cold air. No dice, no cards. Just people explaining intent, memory, and meaning. Crockfords argues that Ivey and Kelly used deception. Not a device, not a marked deck, but a story. Superstition, they say, was a disguise. The casino believes they were manipulated into giving permission they would never have given if they understood the true purpose. Ivey argues something simpler. The cards were defective. The casino provided them. The casino approved every request. Nobody forced their hand. If the house makes money from probability, why is it wrong when a player uses observation to reduce randomness? Then the judge delivers a line that stings because it feels human. He believes Ivey is sincere. He believes Ivey truly thinks he did nothing wrong. But the court says sincerity is not the same as fairness. The conduct is not criminal cheating, but it is dishonest by ordinary standards, because the purpose was hidden. In other words, the law is telling him this. You can win without breaking a rule, and still lose because you broke trust. Across the Atlantic, another casino looks at the same story and sees it differently. In New Jersey, the focus is less about what you believed and more about what the game requires. Baccarat is supposed to be random. If you influence the orientation so you can identify value, then the randomness is damaged. The conclusion lands in the same place, even if the path is different. One continent says the problem is dishonesty. The other says the problem is interference with the rules of chance. And for the audience, the argument becomes impossible to ignore. When does being smart become being deceptive? If a casino uses lighting, sound, free drinks, and social pressure to shape your choices, is that fair? If a player uses politeness and observation to shape the casino, is that cheating? That is why this story stays alive. Because it is not just about Phil Ivey. It is about a world where systems sell certainty and punish you the moment you expose how fragile that certainty really is. Kelly understood that fragility long before the courtroom. She learned what it feels like when powerful people decide the rules do not protect you. So she built a method that looks clean, feels clean, and leaves no fingerprints. A method powered by one cultural instinct that casinos depend on: saying yes to the wealthy. This is Sins and Lessons, and the lesson here is uncomfortable. The most dangerous exploits do not look like attacks. They look like requests. They look like normal. They look like service. In the next episode, we follow a different kind of table, a different kind of casino, a screen that looks perfectly safe, a click that feels routine, and money that vanishes without a single password being cracked. If you want that story, subscribe and stay with me. Because the next time the system lies, it will not be cards. It will be what you see and what you think you are approving.